For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
So, Russ, it's taken almost an eternity.
Yes.
But I just ordered a donut, a specific seasonal donut, just because you give me grief every season that I
Which
don't.
one did you get?
I got the frosted sugar cookie donut.
And what did you think?
I don't get it.
Why would you get a sugar cookie donut?
Because I don't like gingerbread
flavors.
I don't like gingerbread, and I'm not a big fan of like mint, so the candy cane didn't really do it for me. So yeah, I mean, it's like imagine it's not jelly filled donut. It's like I don't even know what it's got inside it. But
is that Romeo over there? Craig said it's table.
Hey,
Romeo!
Hey,
Romeo,
what are you two doing here?
You got your high test coffee right there. I see.
that, yeah.
Full octane.
There you go. Now, Romeo, do you enjoy donuts? Do you eat donuts or just coffee?
I do. This bag of crawlers, my favorite,
Nice.
will easily take care of my morning hunger pains.
Wow.
Ooh, well said.
Nicely done, sir. It's like the Snickers of donut beverages.
That's right.
So I've been wanting to track down Romeo.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Okay.
What a lucky find for you. Here I am.
How fortuitous of you.
It's unbelievable. It's almost like we planned it.
You're right.
And of course, so the Punisher, with very, very, very highly anticipated addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Netflix neighborhood,
stable,
right? Exactly. And then when it came out, I binged it. I watched it over probably 3, maybe 4 sittings. And I will admit, at the beginning, the first 4 or 5, I found.
Well, wait. Should we give the alert? Should we give a spoiler warning?
Oh, we should. Oh, we're gonna
pre-warn.
Yeah.
Spoilers up the wazoo.
If you've not watched Punisher yet, do not listen to this episode. Wait, go watch it, then come back, right? Because we're gonna talk. All 3 of us have seen the entire season. We're gonna talk like expecting you to have listened to it, watched it too, right? So
Yes.
Don't listen.
We're going to be telling secrets out of school.
And don't get spoiled. The show, you don't want this spoiled for you. Watch the thing.
No, exactly. Good catch, Russ. Good catch.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. No. Thank you for that. Okay. So I found the first 4 or 5 episodes extremely compelling. I really enjoyed them. The acting, I think, is phenomenal. There's I didn't think there was a missed moment or a misfire among the characters. I thought the writing was great. There were moments of like laughter. There were moments of sadness. It's very intense. It's very dark, and to the point where the violence and the darkness almost overwhelmed all of the other positive benefit, all of the cool stuff about it. And I actually stepped away for a couple days before I went back and finished it. And that sort of darkness is a through line, right, through the whole series, through the whole season. And ultimately, the way that the series dealt with veterans, and in particular combat veterans, I found very disconcerting. Not like it was not that it was negative, but it was. I mean, the whole plot is wrapped up in these combat, I mean, good guys, bad guys, they're all coming back, from the Middle East, all these combat veterans. And I found myself wondering how veterans might feel about it and if it's good or bad. I mean, you've got, like I said, you've got the bad guy is a combat veteran coming back. You've got, for lack of a better term, the good guy, the anti-hero, the Punisher, Frank Castle. And then, of course, you've got this poor kid who's wrenched with PTSD, who becomes basically a terrorist in his own right.
Lewis, by the way.
Lewis Walcott is the character's name, exactly. And so I really started to I started to wonder. And so Romeo, of course, was a Marine, and hoorah. And so I thought, well, we're going to have him on the show. This is going to be awesome. And he sort of fast-tracked the viewing so we could do this. So Romeo, first, like right off the bat, how did you like the Punisher? First of all,
okay, so 10 out of 10 for me, easily one of my favorite. And here's and this probably will lure people to my concept on TV watching and what I enjoy to watch. I'm very much into the darker type of cinematography, you know, where the blood is real, where the splatter is real, where, you know, when a guy gets his eyes gouged out, they show a corpse with no eyes in it. You know what I mean? Like, man, that's like drives home the point. I mean, real quick for people that don't know my history. So I was a Marine, 8 years. I was a military policeman, and as a military policeman, you basically do the same thing as a regular cop. You just do it on base. And people always say, well, a military cop, they don't do anything. And it's like, well, not really. Actually, we do the same thing real cops do in the city, but everybody we pull over is a trained killer. So that's – you know, we get DUIs, we get domestic violence, we get the occasional murders, we get you get the suicides, you get the accidents, you get all the typical things that you see in a major city, but it's elevated to the next level when you're dealing with former and current military personnel and or dependents of those personnel, because everything those people do is always ratcheted up to the next level because they're in such stressful situations on a regular basis in their work environments, right? So when they interact with us, they're already coming from an overly fueled and energetic situation. Could be good, could be bad, could be drunk and infused. It could be just, rage. And when we get a hold of them, we're automatically the new enemy. So they're coming from a war-torn place, and then they come into reality and they want to be left alone, and then they do something silly, and then the military policemen show up, and now it's like we're the bad guys. We need to be, dealt with accordingly. So obviously you guys understand kind of my background in that. So I definitely can relate to the darkness, right? Because the things I was exposed to while I was in the military for the time I was in, weren't at the level of what you see in Punisher, obviously, right? Because that's, over the top. But the loss, the heartache, the depression that is felt by military personnel for all various reasons. Everything from, not achieving the rank you want and the speed you want, and just being felt, because the military just by nature is a ranked type system. So people just when they walk up to you can tell how much you've achieved while you've worked, right? Because the collar on your shoulder tells them, right, well, you've been in 8 years, and why do you have X, rank on your shoulder? You almost wear everything on your sleeve, basically, right? So every aspect of the military is in a way, in a nutshell, pissing contest. How do I get better? How do I achieve the next level? How do I get to the next thing? How do I get the next goal accomplished? So having that and being involved in that for the amount of time I've been and was involved in it, for me, I personally enjoyed it. Every part of the military life, the excitement of it, the adrenaline that you got in certain situations, the things I did while I was in were extremely rewarding. I felt for me personally on a mental and on a physical level, and then getting out of the military, it transformed me from. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm gonna just call it what it is: a very cowardly type of persona, a very quiet kid. That was, a foreigner who came to America, didn't speak the language, was kind of bullied growing up, didn't really know my way, wasn't very sure myself. And then I went to the military and I found who I was, and they helped me transform into finding all of my goods and using those and presenting those publicly while, fighting the urge to revel in the negatives. So for me, the military is always a positive. Even though there were negative aspects of it and negative things occurred while I was in, they were all positives in the long run, and it developed me into an adult that I am today. So watching this show, instantly I was hooked because they really kind of tell a true story. And a lot of the characters that they picked for these, although very attractive-looking people, still told a great story in the way that the characters were written and then acted out.
So, Romeo, did you see archetypes of the various kind of people you dealt with during your time in the military in these characters? Because, we also didn't mention Hoyle, who is kind of the veteran who's the good. He's the one person you could say he's the good guy, right? He's the one that
was that the counselor dude?
Yeah, he runs the group,
dude, right?
So he's a veteran as well. He's lost his lower leg.
Yeah.
He's the one you could say he's the good guy, right? He's just trying to help people out. He's risking himself every day with some of these guys who are violent, and but it's almost like there's all the archetypes, right? There's the guys who are just a little messed up. There's the guy who may or may not have been a veteran and lies about it, right? There's the guy who's there's the guy who's just crazy. There's the guy who seems to have dealt with it, but the main villain, but he's kind of gone off the deep end a different way. And then you got the Punisher, whose heart is in the right place. He's a good guy, but he doesn't. He wants to deal with everything himself in the way he thinks is the best, right? Is that did all that kind of stuff? I mean, obviously it's all over the top. It's all exaggerated to tell a story and to be more impactful. But you felt that was pretty accurate and treated the topic with respect.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, right, in the military join for the right reasons. There's a few that come in there because they're forced to, because there's no other way to get anywhere in life, or they've reached a dead end and it's time to make a choice, go to jail or get out. You know what I mean? And not literally like, that's their option, but they kind of see that their life would spiral into a very negative type of scenario. So they say, you know what, the military will straighten me out. So there's those guys. But then a lot of the guys that I was enlisted with and was in the military with, they were guys that came in for the right reason. They were all about the Marine Corps. They were all about being patriotic to their country. They wanted to serve their country and attempt to become a military man for life. And I think all of us, when we stood on the yellow footprints, in Parris Island or San Diego for the Hollywood Marines, no offense, but I mean, they had a softer boot camp, but whatever. I mean, that's California. But the thing about it is those guys, when we all stood on the yellow footprints, everybody thought, I'll be doing this for the next 20 years. I'm going to retire doing this. At least the guys I was enlisted with. And as you start becoming a military person, a military man or woman for that matter, you start making decisions that then will impact if you will stay in the military and if you can accept the life that the military is. Because in the military, there always will be someone that will be your superior. It's as simple as that. And even the highest 4-star general has the president to respond to, right? So there's always a guy who's going to kick sand in your face. And if you can be okay with that and your ego gets below the patriotic service to your country part, then you can achieve a lot of things in the military. And I think some people that have this mentality that they go in, they're going to serve their country, they're going to become lifers, and then are dealt some bad hands. And what I mean by that is maybe they don't make promotion fast enough. Maybe they're dealt a really shitty command that craps on them on a regular basis, and they're just used as, basically tools, bludgeoned and then thrown in the trash. Maybe they're put into a war environment where they're physically or emotionally hurt and distressed by the environment. And then, again, removed for various reasons, either being injured and not capable of finishing their duty, or mentally they choose to leave because they've been mentally affected. A lot of people, after that emotional kind of life change and momentum shift, are left in this kind of lull because they went in and they stood on the footprints, and I don't know what the Navy does and the Air Force and the Army, whatever their version of boot camp is, but you have this patriotic feeling, oorah, yeah, and then all of a sudden you're not doing that anymore, and you're sent back to your hometown or wherever it is you come out of the military and go to, and you realize, number one, everything's slower, right? Everything moves slower, and people don't relate to you unless they're also military guys or former military guys. And you realize when you have, and I'll use the term that the president used, locker room talk to the umpteenth level, and you have that conversation in today's world at a Starbucks, people look at you like you're a psychopath. Right. And that alienates you even further because you've been talking like that for 4 years, 8 years, whatever your enlistment was or whatever you lasted in the military. Right. And you come back and then you instantly start segregating yourself, or the public segregates you out of the norm, and that just pushes certain people into a dark place. Right. And some people can adjust to that, other people cannot, and it's just human nature that you're going to find variations of this. So personally, for me, when I got out of the military, I looked at it it was my time to get out for various reasons. I had gotten everything I needed out of it. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I felt for what it was. And when I got out, it was now my time to take all the stuff they taught me and how they changed me and molded me as a human being and apply it to my next thing in life, which was going to become business.
Right.
And how did I do that without, really attracting negativity? And if you guys remember the way I was 10 years ago when I started Battlefoam versus the way I am today 10 years later, it's a totally different person. So I was very rough edge, very bludgeon tool right when I got out of the military. I unfortunately was not very politically correct in my terminology with things. I was very much in your face and very derogatory and negative towards people that didn't agree with me, and it hurt my business. So I had to really step back and kind of conform to reality that I'm not in the military. You can't just tell somebody to F off and then expect them to, go buy some Battlefoam. You have to, you know what I mean? You have to get real. And I think a lot of veterans, and the show does a lot of this, is they show the struggle of these people that some can do it, others cannot. Some find comfort in the cannot, and others find comfort in the can adjust phase.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Walcott, the guy who goes bonkers, he literally was itching. If you guys remember, in many of the episodes, he tries to go out for Anvil and become a mercenary for hire, and they tell him you're too crazy for that. And he was like, that was like his last escape. Like, I want to go back and kill people, man.
Right.
Like, that's my thing. I'm a patriot. And his only exhale from that like pent up anger inside of him was to be given another rifle or a gun or a weapon to kill and be sent to the front line and do it. And when he was rejected, it was the final straw. Like, what? And he exploded. Right?
Literally.
Castle, literally.
Yeah, I see you
I
did there.
didn't mean to say that.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, see, it was a whole visual. It was a whole
Yeah.
symbolism
See,
thing.
it was a.
Spoiler.
Now playing off of that, Romeo. So clearly, I mean, there's two guys that. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't even say Hoyle is dealing well with it, because he's dealing with it and helping all these other guys deal with it. But at the beginning, it seems the guy who's dealing with coming back and integrating the best would be Billy Russo, right? Because he started this company. He's like, he's a businessman now. He's all dressed in fancy clothes. Now, of course, then. Spoiler
He's an
alert,
opportunist.
you find that out. That
Yeah, right,
now,
he's a bad guy. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, as a veteran, did that and a guy who's dealt with veterans in all these different frameworks. How did that strike you, that this guy who seems to be the most level-headed and the guy who was able to come back and reintegrate was in fact actually the bad guy who had brought the violence back with him and was actually still involved with the violence even more than these guys who are struggling,
Look, I'll be straightforward, honest with you. Out of all the characters, I think I relate to him the most, right? And here's why I say that. I say that because when I look at him, I'm going to call him Jigsaw because that's what he becomes. So whatever. Spoiler alert, Jigsaw. What I relate about him is at the beginning of the show, he's an opportunist while enlisted, right? He's making side deals with the command. He's their go-to guy, but at the same time, he knows that if he's their go-to guy, he's expendable. So how does he keep himself alive? Well, he strikes side deals with the guys, and he's willing to burn his unit to do it, right? And he seems to always be in a power position that even when crap hits the fan, he's going to come out unscathed, right? So after he gets out of that situation and he comes back to the real world, he once again puts himself in a power position where he's running Anvil and he's doing all these things with his secret force that he can then hire out to make more money for himself, power and control, to cover his butt, because he knows the people he's been with and the things he's done are definitely skeletons in the closet, and how better to keep the skeletons in the closet than lock them up and put more locks on the door. So Anvil's a lock. All the guys he has trained under him are locks. Having dirt on everybody, those are all locks that hold the skeletons in the closet. So what I say about relate from him is he's just an opportunistic guy. Like, his goal was go in the military, get what I need out of the military, get out of the military, and then get what I need to be successful after that. Now, remove the dark side and the killer and the psychopath out of it. I relate to him from the simple fact that I did kind of the same path. I went to the military to get something out of it, to serve my country, to give back for originally not being a citizen and being allowed to become an American citizen. That was my way of saying I need to repay my debt. Then once I did that, it was what has the military taught me? How can I use that to better my life in the long run? So once I finished my enlistment, it was time to move on. And now how do I use that to better my life and get further ahead? Again, without killing people and starting a mercenary army, which I may or may not have started. I'm just saying.
It is called Battlefoam, people,
I'm just saying,
and he does have a general.
If you guys need somebody to go away, I might have a guy. I'm just saying. So, but I like him for that reason. I think everybody was cast very well. Obviously, John Bernthal. Do I say his name right? I always feel like I don't say his name right.
I think it's Bernthal.
Bernthal. I always call him Bernthal.
So.
Whatever. But John. That dude is one of my favorite actors in general. He was great on The Walking Dead in season 1, where you just played that perfect good guy, bad guy. He was the best friend cop, and then he was secretly hanging out with the wifey and raising the kid. He's just that perfect guy for that, where you can look at him and say, man, this guy's soft, and then you can see the rage in him. So he was like the perfect Punisher. So really like him as a character. I mean, the one thing about Punisher I think they really hit spot on is the characters they have picked were really, really good to what the core material was. I think they did a really good job with that part of it.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Cool. Now, let's next talk about Dina Madani.
Oh, God.
She was great, I thought. So she's obvious that now a lot of these Netflix shows do this, right? Where there's parallel good guys, but they're working at cross purposes quite often. And I think this really sort of took that home where, again, Frank's not really a good guy. He's taken out the bad guys, but he's not doing it in any way that any legitimate law enforcement organization could really be kind of just cast a blind eye towards.
Mildly okay with, right?
Yeah. And so I thought Amber Rose Riva, I think is the way you pronounce her name. I thought she did a great job, and not just because Avasarala was her mom.
That was cool. That was pretty cool.
I don't even know who that is. Who is that?
That's the woman who played her mom plays eventually the Secretary General of the United Nations on the TV show Expanse.
And her character's name is Avasara, yeah.
And her character's name is Avasarala. And she's awesome. I really enjoy, because the one thing I think this show did in a really good job of was the character arcs that almost all of the major characters went through. And hers was great because she starts with this mystery, right? Where her partner back in was he in Afghanistan, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Where he's shot, and she's sent this video footage of his murder, basically, and then she's trying to figure out why, and nobody cares. Nobody wants to know, and they've already spent all of the time and effort and money and political capital they're going to spend, but this is her driving force. And then slowly over time, through her pursuit of this, she's rising higher and higher in Homeland Security, and eventually gets really high up where she's now dealing with the people who were stonewalling her, right? And in meantime, while she's doing that, she has this partner, and very, classic trope where they don't really get along at the beginning, and he's sort of a rookie, and then of course he meets a gruesome, grisly end where you're no longer able to pretend that Billy Russo might even remotely be a decent human being. I just really enjoyed everything to do with her character as well.
My favorite part of that arc was her hooking up with Russo. So that whole thing was
the scenes were excellent, yes, for obvious reasons.
Well, no, not just that, but I like the yes, but more importantly, like the fact, like knowing that, like they did a pretty good job of telegraphing that something was wrong with Russo. Like right. My wife and I suspected him not being quite right from the beginning because they did these very subtle things that you're supposed to. I think as a viewer, you were supposed to notice that
he was weird. Yeah,
he was not quite right. Right, that this
he was too
thing,
pretty to be a good guy.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, kind of like the whole Aragon thing, feels fouler but is fair or whatever. Yes. He kind of felt like this is too easy for him, kind of thing. And like the way he handled the money with Hoyle, and there was some stuff that was like a little bit like there's something going on. And what made it great was like at first you're kind of like, is it just the actor's not pulling this off right? And you're like, no, I think he's supposed to be, And then, but when he hooked up with her, and then you started realizing, and then he started showing you that he actually is a bad guy, but you don't know how. To Greg's point, you didn't know for sure that he was completely a dirt scumbag until the scene where they take out her team, right? And then he sleeps with her afterwards. It's like, oh my God, like that whole thing where he's the one comforting her, like that was. Like that was just a powerful scene, right? Where like that was just awesomely evil. It was like it made him such a cool villain, right?
What I thought it did is I thought it made you realize that him and Punisher together were all the same guy in a way.
Yes.
Their unit were a kill squad, which is what they they tell you from the beginning that's what they were, and it showed their their disconnect from reality. In other words, they can go and kill a bunch of dudes and then come home, laugh it off. What's the next mission? And that's kind of what he was doing. He can go and kill her partner in cold blood, direct, with stabbing him to death, and then go back, have sex with her the next night or the same night, and pretend he's this loving boyfriend kind of feeling. And he's not going to shake it or wink an eye at it. So, but that's what Punisher does, right? He can go out and kill a bunch of people and then go to some lady's house and have cookies with the kids.
Right.
And throw
Well,
a
that was the
football
interesting
around.
thing. So what's interesting was, and I wanted to get your guys' read on this. So do you think Russo, right, when he's comforting her, do you think he's thinking like, I'm playing her, or do you think he's literally like turned that part off now and he's genuinely trying to comfort her? Just like, to your point, Romeo, that Punisher is genuinely comforting the family there, right, over the loss of the husband who's not dead. I'm forgetting his name. What's the husband's name? Punisher's partner? Who's Punisher's partner's name?
Microchip guy.
Microchip guy, yeah. So Microchip guy, his wife, and who was on Eureka, and her kids with him. So Punisher's hanging out with him. Punisher's doing these evil things, but he's like taking care of her and doing household chores and taking care of the kids. Now the difference between Russo and Punisher is like Punisher would never hurt that family. Like, Castle would not, he will die before they get hurt. In fact, that literally happens at one point. But whereas Russo is comforting her, and I think he's turned it off and is genuinely trying to comfort her. But
no, I think
if he needed a capper, he would. What do you think?
I think he's, again, opportunistic.
So he's playing it. So he knows he's playing her.
And he's got an overall agenda that he needs to achieve, and that's kill, obviously, the Punisher.
So everything he's doing is calculated, you're saying, every moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even when he first slept with her, it was calculated to get close.
Absolutely.
So he's not like...
Yes. He needs to keep an eye on her and keep a tab on her so that she doesn't find out the stuff. Because remember, the show is... She's already onto something when the show begins.
Right.
So you don't get all of that. You kind of get a little bit of backshadowing.
But here's the thing, like what I couldn't find out, and I think in the end Nicole and I agreed that he was just lawful evil. So because what I kind of because the thing was what I couldn't figure out was he kind of like schizophrenic, right? Where one minute he's a cold hard killer doing what he needs to survive, but the next minute he's still seeking love and comfort. Kind of the way Punisher is sort of warming up, but keeping the line clear because a couple times it gets dangerously close with Microchip's family there. But like
this, isn't it just Micro?
I don't know. Then
I think his name is Micro. I think he goes by Micro, but at one point he says my name's Microchip.
Yeah.
Or I go by
really?
Microchip.
Or you could just call him David.
Yeah, I think his name's David. Right.
David Lieberman is the character's name.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Or Micro.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
But then, because the end, right? So to jump ahead a little, so in the end, Russo sets up and this is why I think he's lawful evil. His word is still good because the Punisher he and the Punisher work together briefly to take out that one dude, right? He kind of says, well, he cut his thing, right, to help him out. So it was almost like he said, I'll help you out here if you do this. And so but what I couldn't figure out there was it just that he needed Punisher's help there? So like a lawful evil character, he was true to his word? Or was he kind of, again, sort of this schizophrenic, sort of strangely psychotic person that was having breaks back and forth? You know what I mean?
Oh.
I mean, I just think that I honestly think that he has no feeling for any of the people that he deals
so
with.
So it's just opportunistic. He's just calculating all the time.
They're just
so at that moment
just
at the end,
in his way. Yeah, there's
Again,
objects
at the
in this
moment at his
way.
end, it was better for him to let the Punisher kill the dude there, the main bad guy. The bad guy, right?
Right, because he saw the value of that guy no longer being
right.
He was no longer of value, right?
Right.
So he saw kind of like his team had been killed off.
Right.
This guy had already kind of threatened him, right? Because you remember I think an episode or two before, the Rollins guy or Rawlings, whatever his name is, he threatens him and kind of tells him, "Hey, you're or was it in that? I don't remember. It was in the last episode. Yeah, it's when he's torturing Punisher.
Right. Yeah.
He steps in and he's like, "Hey, dude, just kill him. I promised I'd kill him quick." And he's like, "No, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get mine."
That's where the lawful evil part kicks in, because I think
Right.
I think Russo's good to his word. If you can get him to give you a word, he's good.
Right. I just kind of feel like he realizes at various points that he's just one of these. He's a pawn. This guy's a pawn, and as many of the pawns in his life, and he moves them as he needs them, and then when he doesn't need them anymore, he just eliminates them. Right, and they're gone, which is how he's gotten to the success that he's gotten.
Yeah,
just Frank doesn't die ever.
Right,
even when he gets shot like 7 times. Love it.
Now, okay, something new. When they first introduced the character in Daredevil season 2, right?
Yes.
Wasn't there a lot of talk about the fact that the Punisher could do what he was doing and had no remorse because of a head wound that he had suffered? I could have sworn there was a head wound and it had had some impact on his ability to empathize. Yeah, and so I mean,
that's interesting you say that, because they did make a big point to show that grazed headshot wound that Jigsaw, in the staircase where he shoots at him and he grazes him on the temple, kind of above his temple. They really made that. Most of the scars he got throughout the show from being kicked or dropped or whatever, they were gone. They were gone by the next episode. He had healed from them. But the head wound he had for almost 3 episodes, and it made it a very apparent scar on his head.
I noticed that too, Romeo. It was like a turning point for him.
Yeah.
So maybe that was a nod to that.
Right.
They didn't really talk about it this season, though.
Yeah, that's okay. So that was my second point, was they didn't really talk about it, which was weird. But then my third point is Madani at the end gets a massive head wound, right? And that she survives.
Right.
And I'm curious as to, I don't know any of the comic books, so I don't know what happens next and what other characters, what characters might become. But it struck me as an interesting sort of bookend for her to get that wound when, at least initially in the Daredevil season, it seemed like that was what spurred him to become the Punisher in the first place.
Yeah.
So is she going to be the female Punisher? Is there one of those?
Yeah, or I don't know. Or is she going to be some kind of counterweight to the Punisher in the future, where she's going to be significantly different personality-wise than she has been so far?
There's an interesting thing that happened, because I just saw the last episode, was it 2 nights ago? So I kind of still fresh in my mind.
Uh-huh.
There's an interesting thing, and I don't remember for the life of me what is said. I don't know if you guys can recall it, but I remember just thinking it was oddball, where she's, obviously she's had the kind of the last fight of the show, and she's in the hospital bed, and the Punisher comes in, and he's finally facing the deputy. She's the deputy CIA main deputy, whatever.
Yeah, the woman that finally
the politician
shut down.
lady, right?
Yeah, right.
So they're all in her room, whatever, and they're all talking to the Madani, right?
Yeah.
And she's wounded, but she's sitting up in bed, and they ask her something. If I remember, I don't remember what the hell they ask her, but they ask her something, and she doesn't react like her old self.
Uh-huh.
She had this very kind of almost evil look in her eye,
yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Right, and God, for the life of me, I don't remember what I was. It was towards the last. It was late night. It was midnight, and I was getting woozy a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight had already finished with Jigsaw, and I was like, all right, he's dead. Show's over. Now it's all BS. But I did remember her very and you know what they did too, and I don't know if this is foreshadowing what they're trying to portray, is she had really dark eyes, her rings around her eyes. They were obviously black and blue eyes from her fight. But if you look at it, now you guys got to go back and watch this scene and see if you can pick something out of here. But her eyes almost look like she's wearing a little mask. She's not. But it makes her eyes look villainous.
Right.
And her reaction to the question is very villainous in its reply, and her smirk is very vindictive in its look. It's almost to say that she's going to become someone evil in the future, or very similar to a Punisher-type vigilante character. Right. At least for a second I thought that, but feel free to text me after and tell me if you guys see that scene, if you notice something fishy with it. So maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it again now but I do remember a moment in that scene where I felt like she was disconnected and not all there. But I couldn't tell if that was because she was just wounded and dazed and they were trying to show that, or if there's something deeper we're supposed to have noticed. But there was a lot of subtle stuff this season, so I wouldn't be surprised at all, Romeo, if you're right about this. Yeah. A lot of stuff was very subtle, I thought.
I mean, dude, overall, I mean, what a show. I mean,
I know, right? Oh, man.
I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I like that they fit a lot of – you know what my favorite part about The Punisher is?
Right.
He only asks the bad guys one time the question he needs an answer to, and then they're dead.
And they're right.
Because if I was a mercenary vigilante killer, I'm not going to ask you twice for anything. I'm going to say, dude, where's your boss? And you say, I don't know. Okay, bye.
Boom.
Good lights out.
Guy. Right.
Yeah. I'm not going to be like, come on, you know. You got to tell me.
Right.
You know? It's not happening. I've already shot you twice in the leg and once in the neck.
Right.
You're going to die anyway.
You're going to die or you're going to tell me. Right.
We're not going to play this game. I got places to be, people to see. You know what I mean? So I really like that about it because it's very realistic if you were a vigilante, maniac, killer, psycho / former military guy.
I love the ending, and what I really loved about it, and I was freaking out because the show was so good and I was so connected to the characters, particularly David Lieberman, Micro's family, right? So they'd really done a good job of getting me connected to them and hoping David would get back together again with them. But they'd also done a really good job of, Jigsaw being able to show up anywhere and be a problem. And so in the final scenes there, when, Jigsaw and Punisher are throwing down, but meanwhile David and his family are apparently together in a safe house, I'm like, but any moment something's going to happen. And I was like, please just let him have a happy ending. Please just let him have a happy ending. Like I really wanted, you knew the Punisher could never have a happy ending. Like you just know his lot in life is to never win, really. But I'm kind of like, can his season be about him helping a family each season? Like, can you see the good? Can there be something he's doing because the show's so dark? It's like, can we just have a little bit of good coming out of something, And so if that family gets back together again because of what the Punisher did this whole season, then that would be cool. And I would feel like he's an anti-hero, but he's doing a little bit of good, And so I was so glad, but it was cool to me, and it was really fun, in sort of an emotional way to kind of like come on, please make it, please. And so I really liked that part. I liked the end, and I liked that I cared enough to want them to be together. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. You're very soft and cuddly that way.
I guess I'm a softie. I guess that's So what did you think of the finale, Craig? Did you like how it ended? Did you feel like you had a good arc
did.
Here?
I loved it. I felt like it was a really nice wrap up with him in the support group at the end and admitting that he's scared. I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, that was great.
But at the same time would be relatively easy to unravel if they, and I think they did.
Need him.
Yeah, exactly. For the next season, probably, he'll kill again, but probably, hopefully, for less personal reasons. I mean, I hope they don't just wipe out everybody he's close to again, just for the sake of that. But I really appreciated the way that the series treated all of its characters. And wrapped up their stories. I thought it was artful.
Yeah.
And eloquent.
They did do a good job. It was also very satisfying the way Castle Punisher just dragged what would be Jigsaw's face through the glass.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
That was brutal.
Oh, that was brutal. But at the same time, you're like, yes! Cause
you wanted to do that to him the whole show.
What's that?
You wanted him to do that the whole entire show.
You really did.
You're like, finally, he's beating this guy's face in. Finally. Yeah.
And really, when there's really bad villains like this guy, and you really grow to hate this guy, Russo, right? I mean, you really are like, God, this guy's just a jerk. And but usually the payout's not what you want. Like you know what I mean?
It's too fast.
It's too fast, or it's slow, but it's like unrealistically slow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this was just right. Like it's exactly the kind of thing that you just imagine the Punisher would do to somebody in this situation. Yeah. It was great. So great.
And I like how he killed Rawlings too. Like when he basically gouged his freaking eyes out. That was awesome.
Yeah, I had to look away at that part. I was like, oh God.
I loved it. I was like, man, I hope you gouge his guys out. And sure as hell, you gouged his guys out. I was like, yes, he gouged his eyes out.
The best part was watching Russo's face while it happened.
Oh yeah, it was so good.
Yeah,
that was oh man.
Yeah.
Well, that just showed his opportunistic psychopathic ways, where he was just like enjoying, and then he even says that a Punisher. He says, "Man, I love watching you work." If you guys remember that part, he's just like he was just going back to his old days when where the Punisher would go into an Afghani village and just start blasting dudes and just going nuts on them.
Right.
And by the way, I got to make a comment. If people haven't seen the show, holy cow, do they do an amazing job with the cinematography when it comes to the fight scenes. I mean, it's this Netflix show, it's a Netflix show. I know they have a large budget because it's Netflix, but it rivals some very high-end Hollywood endless budget productions where they cut corners doing some of the stunt work and the gore scenes and the blood packs and all the things that they have on the show. The amount of realistic blood that they used in this show was epic. I mean, there was so much makeup. You know what I mean? That was on not only on the characters' faces, but in the rooms and the splatter effects they did on the dye packs and all the cool little things. If you're into like cinematography that you look for, like, man, did that bullet tear through that guy's clothing the way a round of that magnitude would in real life? And they really captured all that stuff. So that was one that I'm very much a realistic person when it comes to that kind of stuff. I like realism. I think that's another reason why I'm not a big fan of Star Trek, more of a fan of Star Wars, because in Star Trek I always feel like, when a guy gets shot in the chest, it's like this tiny little burn mark. He gets shot with his laser phaser and, he falls down. He's like, you got me, Priceline guy. And it's like, come on, man. It's an alien. At least have some green blood shooting out of its head, right? But in the Punisher, I mean, the guy gets shot in the chest, and like his chest opens up, and it's like boom. It's very cool. I love that part of the show. So
that's great.
Very, very top notch.
On that note, the Dunkin' Donuts guy is giving us an evil eye.
I think he must be a Star Trek fan.
He must be. He's not happy with that last comment about the Priceline guy.
Or I think he might have have had a bad Priceline experience.
There's people listening screaming, "It's Captain James T. Kirk, you idiot! He's not the Priceline guy."
Oh, can't he be both?
Well, Romeo, thanks for joining us here in Dunks. It was great to see you, and thanks for being open and honest and sharing some of your experiences there in the military. It was nice to hear that, and it was nice to hear about how accurate the show was. So it was great, and we'll have you on again on the main show here in about a week. We're looking forward to have you back on to talk about Battlefoam as well as some Company of Iron here. Not too distant future here.
Just very excited. Can't wait, fellas. Thanks.
Yeah, cool. Bye.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.